Getting a band 8 or 9 in IELTS listening is totally possible. Thousands of my students who follow these strategies have done it. And I share all my listening and reading materials for free on YouTube, so you learn everything you need to pass IELTS listening in this one video. We'll cover the strategies that actually work, the mistakes you should avoid, and how to handle every type of listening question with real practice. This is one of my most comprehensive lessons, so let's get started. Here is what you need to know about this section. The listening test is the same for both academic and general training candidates. The test itself is about 30 minutes long. If you're taking IELTS on paper, you'll get an extra 10 minutes at the end to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. In IELTS on computer, there is no separate answer sheet, so you get 2 extra minutes to check your answers. There are 40 questions divided into 4 parts. And the recordings get progressively more difficult, but you'll probably find that some of the questions in the middle of the test are more challenging than some at the end. That's to be expected. In terms of scoring, you'll get 1 point per correct answer, and your score out of 40 is then converted to a band score. You need around 23 correct answers for band 6, 30 for band 7, 35 for band 8, and a full 40 out of 40 for that magic band 9. One important thing to remember: you only hear the recording once, and there are no pauses between the different sections. So full focus is key. Now, let's talk about the general approach to this test that could help you cope with the pace and find more answers. One of the difficulties in IELTS listening is time. There is just not enough of it, and it may feel like you have to read, listen, and write all at the same time. But it doesn't have to be this way. IELTS listening becomes a bit easier if you can carefully read questions before listening to the recording. In the test, you are given about 30 seconds to do that. While it's enough for part 1 and maybe 2, in parts 3 and 4, there is hardly enough time to finish scanning the questions. So here is a solution that helped me get band 9 years ago, and it still works today. At the end of each section, you are given 30 seconds to review your answers. Together with instructions telling you to do so, that's 45 seconds. Plus the time with instructions for the next section. You could get 1 minute 45 seconds to read your questions instead of just 30 seconds. And that's enough to read all the questions and highlight keywords to help you find the right option quickly. Use the time for instructions and revision to read questions coming next. And if you're wondering if you are allowed to go to the next section before you hear the instructions to do so, the answer is yes. Once you open the test questions, you can go to any page you like. In a computer-based IELTS, you just need to click on the next question to go to the next section. And don't forget to do that, because new questions won't open automatically. As for reviewing your answers, there is a bit of time for that at the end of the test. Even if you read all the questions, when the recording starts playing, there are so many elements in the task. Where to look? Knowing this can solve this problem. All IELTS listening questions come in order. If we have a look at the map again, you'll hear about the coffee room, then the warehouse, staff canteen, and so on. When you are preparing, study the map and try to memorize the objects on the map. There is no need to spend too much time on the questions because you know in which order they come. And remember that you start at the entrance. In our case, in the reception. Similarly, in a matching information exercise, you see a box with options named information and below the questions from 15 to 20. Follow the questions. First you hear number 15, fresh food commercial manager, then agronomist, and so on. While preparing, carefully read and try to memorize the options in the box. The third element of the strategy is to concentrate on the right things. Remember that information is never repeated in IELTS listening. Each option is only discussed once. It's either correct or incorrect. The answer will not change. Once you've found your answer, move on to the next question. If you're not sure what the answer is, don't try to figure it out straight away. Mark the question to review and go to the next question. If you miss one answer, move on to the next question and try to find those answers you missed at the end of the test. Otherwise, it's easy to get distracted and miss several answers in a row. Ouch. If you are taking a paper-based exam, underline keywords and cross out incorrect answers. If you take IELTS on computer, I'm afraid you can't do that because highlighting takes too much time. The next question is, can you write your answers in capital letters? So let's have a look at the official IDP recommendation. In IELTS on paper, write all your reading and listening answers in capitals so it's clear for the examiner. However, in computer-delivered IELTS, handwriting is not an issue, obviously, so you should try to write all words using upper and lower case. Basically, what they're saying is, you should try to use correct upper and lowercase letters if you're taking your exam on computer instead of capitalizing all your answers. At the moment, this is just a recommendation, so you can write all your answers in capitals, but you should keep an eye in case this changes in the future. In IELTS writing, though, you must use correct capitalization. Next, don't leave questions unanswered. Make your best guess. You don't lose points for incorrect answers. Spelling counts. You can use British or American spelling. Keep an eye on two questions, your question and the next. If you accidentally miss one answer, you want to quickly switch to the next question. Well, it's not all about tips and easy wins though. Let's discuss how you should practice to achieve real results. You might have heard practice, practice, practice. And practice is a must, but it's more important to practice smartly than to do a lot of tests. First of all, use the official practice tests. You know, it's pretty difficult to create a test paper that has the same level of difficulty as exam papers. Non-official tests may be easier, harder, confusing, or simply different. That's not good. The best tests are Cambridge practice tests, and you may use any recent book, let's say from number 15 and up. There are several official practice tests available online for free. These tests are linked in my study plan, which you can download in the description. Those can give you a good understanding of the test, but they're not exactly like the real tests. Now, I've been working with IELTS students for 7 years and I've noticed that some types of mistakes come up again and again. And they make students lose marks, but not because of their English is not good enough. So if you know what these mistakes are, you'll be much more likely to pick up those extra points. So let's go through the top 12 mistakes and how to avoid them. And the very first mistake is not reading instructions carefully. That may lead to confusion and that may lead to lost points. Some questions have a word limit, and if you write more words than you should, you lose a point. In IELTS listening, you may find one of these two wordings. Write one word for each answer, or write one word and or a number for each answer. Which of these words could be our correct answer? Let's check. Making sure table is clean. The article is missing, right? Making sure a table is clean. But it's not in the question. This means this answer is incorrect. Making sure chairs is clean. Again, incorrect because the verb is singular. Making sure equipment is clean. Yes, that's the correct answer. This noun is uncountable, so it doesn't require an article, but it requires a singular verb. Next, question number 9. Maintaining stock and organizing deliveries, training. Let's have a look at each. Organizing delivery. No, an article is missing. Organizing a delivery. Organizing deliveries. Sounds good. Organizing training. This one is uncountable. Again, so we have two potential answers, and you would actually need to listen to the context to determine which one is correct. Number 10. No work on a once a month. You see, the article A is already there. So for this one, actually listen to the recording and write down your answer on a piece of paper.
What are the hours like?
The usual, I think. There's a lot of evening and weekend work, but they're closed on Mondays. But you do get one Sunday off every 4 weeks. So would you like me to send off your CV?
Ready? The answer is Sunday. Have you capitalized the first letter? And do you actually need to capitalize it? Here is what the IDP website says about it. If you take IELTS on paper, they recommend writing all your listening and reading answers in capital letters for the sake of clarity, to make every letter very clear to the examiner. But if you take IELTS on computer, your handwriting is not an issue. And in this case, they recommend writing all words using upper and lowercase. However, punctuation is only assessed in IELTS writing. So even if you capitalize all your letters in IELTS listening, those answers will be counted as correct even on computer. But the recommendation is not to do that. Although your punctuation is not assessed, your spelling is. The next mistake is not paying attention to your spelling. Even if you make a single mistake in a word or a typo, this answer will be incorrect. So make sure you check the spelling of all your words in filling the blank questions. I know that sometimes you may not remember how to spell a certain word in English. Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet, but there is one exercise that may help you. If you don't remember how to spell a word, take a sheet of paper and a pencil. You'll be provided those even if you take your exam on the computer. And just write down that word and try different spelling options. Think about how you could spell it and try it out. And then look at all those words and think which one looks correct. You may not remember how to spell a word straight away, but you may still spot which spelling is correct when you see it. The next mistake can be very costly, and this is not paying attention to distractors. Yes, there will be some distractors thrown in to see if you're really paying attention. This could be someone saying something and then taking it back, or someone saying something and then later correcting it. So the distractor may come before or after the correct answer. I've prepared for you 2 practice questions to show you how it really looks in practice. Ready for the first?
Did you use public transport?
Yes, I came by bus.
OK, and that was today. It's the 24th of April, isn't it?
Isn't it the 25th? No, actually, you're right.
Okay, the correct answer is 24th April. And we had the answer and then the distractor. Isn't it the 25th? So that was the distractor. Yes, by the way, in IELTS listening, sometimes you need to write down a date, like in this case, and you can do that with the TH, 24th TH April, or without 24 April, both are correct. And now listen to the second practice question. Ready?
So, how did you hear about our club? Did you look on the internet?
I usually do that, but this time, well, I was talking to a relative the other day and he suggested it.
Oh, is he a member too?
He belongs to another club, but he'd heard good things about yours.
Okay.
Okay, in this case, we heard about the distractor first, and then the correct answer. How did you hear about us? Did you look on the internet? I usually did that. So that's the distractor. And now the correct answer. But this time I was talking to a relative. The correct answer is relative. And actually, if you apply the grammar rules we discussed before, you can see that internet cannot be the answer, because then we read heard about us from internet. Obviously incorrect. You should pay attention to distractors. Particularly, you should make sure that you listen to all the information about the question before you select your answer. Answering too quickly is a mistake. Let me show you a question that demonstrates what I mean. This one is coming from part 3 and this is a multiple choice question. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to read the question and all the options and then listen to the recording. Ready?
So, Michelle, shall we make a start on our presentation? We haven't got that much time left.
No, Adam. But at least we've done all the background reading. I found it really interesting. I'd never even heard of the Larky eruption before this.
Me neither. I suppose 1783 is a long time ago.
But it was a huge eruption, and it had such devastating consequences.
I know. It was great there were so many primary sources to look at. It really gives you a sense of how catastrophic the volcano was. People were really trying to make sense of the science for the first time.
That's right. But what I found more significant was how it impacted directly and indirectly on political events, as well as having massive social and economic consequences.
I know. That should be the main focus of our presentation.
Okay, let's have a look at the script together. So first, they're discussing how severe the eruption was, which is close to option A. But they're not saying that it was the most severe eruption in modern times. Next, they're discussing science and that people were really trying to make sense of the science for the first time. That's close to option B. But they're not saying it led to the formal study of volcanoes. And finally, what Michelle found more significant is how it impacted on political events as well as having massive social and economic consequences. In other words, it had a profound or major effect on society. You see, each option has been discussed, but only one of them is correct. Certain details about other options don't match. So don't rush. Listen to all the information and then select your answer. And actually, not crossing out incorrect options is a missed opportunity. They're only going to discuss each option once. If you hear the information about it and you see it's incorrect, cross it out. If you think one option may be correct, but you're not quite sure about it, put a question mark next to it. In this case, it will be easier for you to select or to guess which option is correct when you're not 100% sure. The next mistake is not being ready for different answer formats, so let's prepare you. Let's talk about names and locations first. Sometimes you're asked to write down someone's name, or more commonly in recent tests, the name of their street or town. So they will name it first and then spell it out for you once and quite quickly. Be ready. I've prepared some practice questions for you. Wanna try now? Here is the first.
OK, let's have a look at the current job vacancies at Milo's. The first one is in Wivenhoe Street.
Sorry, where?
Wivenhoe. Wivenhoe. It's quite central, just off Cork Street.
Oh, right.
Okay, and here is the answer. Please note that you don't need to include the word street as it's already in the question. Here is the first practice question.
And what about your home address?
Well, I'm about 10 miles away from your club in Peacetown. I live in a house there.
OK, so what's the house number and street?
It's 52 Marrowfield Street.
Is that MARROWFIELD?
That's right.
And that's Peacetown, you said.
Uh-huh.
And here is the answer. How did it go for you? Have you noticed how they said double R instead of saying RR? They may also say 77 to say 77. And now let's talk about postcodes. Sometimes you are required to write down someone's postal code and they use the UK format. And I think it will be a bit easier for you to write them down if you know how they look. So here are a few options. N2 6TJ, M11 6AD, DL17 6UA. So we have one or two letters, then several numbers, and two more letters. I don't think you need to leave this space in between because how do you know it's there? Again, let's practice. I have two questions and here is the first.
So, next, your postcode, please.
It's DW30 7YZ.
And the answer is DW30 7YZ. Please note that this letter is called Z in British English and Z in American English. Here is the next question.
And what's the postcode, please?
DG7 4HP.
Was that P Papa or B Bravo?
P Papa.
Got that.
And the answer is DG7 4HP. Now you know how to write down those postcodes. Not learning how questions are organized is a mistake. Let's have a look at this matching features task. In the middle, you see a box with options. From A to G. At the bottom, you see questions from 16 to 20. And there is quite a lot of information if you don't know where to look. But remember, in IELTS listening, questions come in order, options don't. This means that you should spend the limited time before the recording starts playing on reading your options. And then you can just follow your questions one after another. And don't forget to cross out used options. Not crossing them out is a mistake. If you take IELTS on paper and you cross out half of the options, it will be much easier for you to navigate and to see which options are still unused. But if you take IELTS on computer, then you see your questions on the left and options on the right. And you just take one option and drag it to the right question. In this case, you always see which options are still left. Leaving some questions unanswered is the next mistake. Remember, you don't lose points for incorrect answers. So you should try to answer every question, even if you're just guessing. There is always a chance to guess correctly, especially if you're crossing out some incorrect answers. Next, not working on your mistakes is another mistake. Once you complete a practice test at home and you check how many questions you've answered correctly, go back to each question you answered incorrectly and find out why. Look at the questions. Read the audio script. Listen to the audio recording again and make sure you find the correct answer and you understand why that answer is correct and not yours. Of course, it may be that you simply didn't know certain keywords in English, or you didn't know how to spell a certain word. So those mistakes are directly linked to your English level, and those are not easy to just get rid of in one day. But some mistakes are related to your test strategies, and it's really important to work on them to reduce the chance of making the same mistake in the next test. Next, very important, not preparing for different types of tasks. There are just 4 types of tasks in IELTS listening. Filling the blanks or gaps. Multiple choice questions, either selecting one answer out of 3 options or 2 answers out of 5. So all tests have these 2 types of questions. And then you have either a map or a matching features exercise. So you should learn how each of them is organized, learn the strategies, and practice. And that's exactly what we're gonna do next. I've analyzed all the official practice tests published over the last 7 years, and I'll show you the patterns I see and the steps you can take to find more correct answers and save time. We'll do some practice questions together. This part is really key because you can only improve if you apply the techniques you learn in practice. In your test, 20 out of 40 questions belong to a single question type. It's called filling the gaps or blanks, also known as missing words. Here is how it looks. In part 1, you need to complete a table and find missing words from a dialogue between 2 people. And in part 4, complete notes with missing words from a lecture. So we have a more academic, higher level topic. And here are a few things that can help you. In IELTS listening, there may be 2 possible wordings. Write one word and or a number for each answer, or just write one word for each answer. The important question here is, what is actually one word? Can you answer a table? No, these are 2 words. It should be just table, not the rivers, just rivers. Don't include articles in your answers. If an article is needed to make the sentence grammatically correct, it will be written in the question sentence. How about a little practice? Have a look at these questions with me first. So number 1, create a cover for an. What kind of answer are you looking for? Well, we know it's a noun beginning with a vowel sound, like an apple or an umbrella. Number 2, build the tallest. You see, the article the is already there. Number 3, make a. We're looking for a noun beginning with a consonant sound, a table, a university. Now, listen to the recording and find the answers.
Hello, Children's Engineering Workshops.
Oh, hello. I wanted some information about the workshops in the school holidays.
Sure.
I have 2 daughters who are interested. The younger one's Lydia. She's 4. Do you take children as young as that?
Yes, our tiny engineers workshop is for 4 to 5-year-olds.
What sorts of activities do they do?
All sorts. For example, they work together to design a special cover that goes round an egg, so that when it's inside, they can drop it from a height and it doesn't break. Well, sometimes it does break, but that's part of the fun.
Right. And Lydia loves building things. Is there any opportunity for her to do that?
Well, they have a competition to see who can make the highest tower. You'd be amazed how high they can go.
Right.
But they're learning all the time as well as having fun. For example, one thing they do is to design and build a car that's attached to a balloon, and the force of the air in that actually powers the car and makes it move along. They go really fast too.
Okay, well, all this sounds perfect.
The first answer is egg. We're not gonna read the transcript together, but if you wanna read it, go ahead and pause the video now. The other answers are tower and car. Let's continue talking about the answer formats. What if you have a currency or numbers? Have a look at questions number 2 and 9 in this task. I've cut out questions from 3 to 8 if you're wondering where they are. Ready?
So, can you give me an idea of how much this will cost? I've got about 360 photos, I think.
We charge £195 for 300 to 400 photos for the basic service. Any other information I can give you?
How long will it all take?
We aim to get the copying done in 10 days.
Fine. Right, well, I'll get the photos packed up in a box and post them off to you.
The answer to question 2 is £195. But you don't need to write down the currency. If you look carefully, the sign of British pounds is already there right after the question number. Question number 9 is 10 days. Our task allows us to write one word and or a number, so we should include both 10 days. What about the dates? Have a look at this question. The cottage is available for week beginning. Have a listen and write down the answer.
My name's Tom. Some friends of ours rented Granary Cottage from you last year and they thought it was great. So my wife and I are hoping to come in May for a week.
What date did you have in mind?
The week beginning the 14th, if possible.
I'll just check. I'm sorry, Tom, it's already booked that week. It's free the week beginning the 28th, though, for 7 nights. In fact, that's the only time you could have it in May.
Oh.
Okay, it's free the week beginning the 28th of May. You only need to write down 28th. I know you may be thinking, what if I just write 28 without the th? Honestly, I haven't found an official confirmation if this is acceptable. There is only one correct answer provided. So if you have a date, try to write it down with the th to be on the safe side. Next, spelling counts. If you make a typo, this means your answer is incorrect. On the good side, both British and American spelling are acceptable. You may find answers like this. To practice. With the C is American and with an S is British, or color and color with or without the U. Sometimes there are even 2 words, movie and film. Here, the key sentence is: think up an idea for a 5-minute movie and then film it. Although in the recording to film is a verb, both answers are correct. A movie is more American and a film is British. Okay, questions in part 1 are easier because they cover everyday English topics. How do you approach a more scientific monologue or lecture in part 4? My first tip is carefully read the questions and highlight keywords. When you see a task like this, pay attention to the title and subtitles. They can tell you what it's all about. They can also help you navigate when you're listening to the recording. You'll hear about the dodo bird, the history, description, and reasons for extinction or why it disappeared. Notice that some points don't contain any questions. They are just following the recording. And the main tip is try to predict the answers. This means you should look at each question and think about what you're looking for. For example, the first point, history, 1507, Portuguese ships transporting what stopped at the island? Any ideas? Or the next, 1638, the Dutch established a what on the island? We know it's a noun beginning with a consonant. What could they establish? Some keywords are repeated while others are paraphrased. Looking at the first two questions, what words will be repeated? Well, Portuguese ships. We may hear ships from Portugal, the Dutch. You can't really change these words, so you hear them again. And the years too. Conversely, words like transporting or established can be paraphrased easily, right? To transport is to carry, to be loaded with. To establish is to set up, to found, to begin something. Now look at question 38. We're talking about dodo birds. Their sense of enabled them to find food. What could it be? You may even be able to guess the answer straight away. Now, go ahead, pause the video and read the questions 31 to 38, carefully highlighting the keywords and trying to predict the answers. We'll skip the last two questions to save some time. Ready to hear the recording? Answer questions 31 to 38.
One of the most famous cases of extinction is that of a bird known as the dodo. In fact, there's even a saying in English, as dead as the dodo, used to refer to something which no longer exists. But for many centuries, the dodo was alive and well, although it could only be found in one place, the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. It was a very large bird, about 1 metre tall, and over the centuries it had lost the ability to fly, but it survived happily under the trees that covered the island. Then, in the year 1507, the first Portuguese ships stopped at the island. The sailors were carrying spices back to Europe and found the island a convenient stopping place where they could stock up with food and water for the rest of the voyage, but they didn't settle on Mauritius. However, in 1638, the Dutch arrived and set up a colony there. These first human inhabitants of the island found the dodo birds a convenient source of meat, although not everyone liked the taste. It's hard to get an accurate description of what the dodo actually looked like. We do have some written records from sailors and a few pictures, but we don't know how reliable these are. The best-known picture is a Dutch painting in which the bird appears to be extremely fat, but this may not be accurate. An Indian painting done at the same time shows a much thinner bird. Although attempts were made to preserve the bodies of some of the birds, no complete specimen survives. In the early 17th century, 4 dried parts of a bird were known to exist. Of these, 3 have disappeared, so only one example of soft tissue from the dodo survives, a dodo head. Bones have also been found, but there's only one complete skeleton in existence. This single dodo skeleton has recently been the subject of scientific research, which suggests that many of the earlier beliefs about dodos may have been incorrect. For example, early accounts of the birds mention how slow and clumsy it was. But scientists now believe the bird's strong knee joints would have made it capable of movement which was not slow, but actually quite fast. In fact, one 17th century sailor wrote that he found the birds hard to catch. It's true that the dodo's small wings wouldn't have allowed it to leave the ground, but the scientists suggest that these were probably employed for balance while going over uneven ground. Another group of scientists carried out analysis of the dodo's skull. They found that the reports of the lack of intelligence of the dodo were not borne out by their research, which suggested the bird's brain was not small, but average in size. In fact, in relation to its body size, it was similar to that of the pigeon, which is known to be a highly intelligent bird. The researchers also found that the structure of the bird's skull suggested that one sense which was particularly well developed was that of smell. So the dodo may also have been particularly good at locating ripe fruit and other food in the island's thick vegetation.
Okay, let's have a look at the answers. So the first paragraph of the transcript is just an introduction. Then the date, 1507, the first Portuguese ships stopped at the island. Just as we predicted, these words were repeated. They were carrying or transporting spices. That's what we use in cooking. And if you've answered spice as an uncountable noun, it's correct too. Next, they didn't settle on Mauritius. However, again, the year, 1638, and the Dutch arrived and set up a colony. To set up is to establish. Actually, if you answered a settlement, this is correct too, even though we haven't heard the word settlement. We've only heard the Portuguese didn't settle on Mauritius. Nevertheless, the meaning is the same and both answers are correct. Next, the Dutch painting, so these words are repeated, suggests the bird was fat. 34. The soft tissue that survives is a head. 35. The single dodo skeleton, so that's the word from our question. The answer is a bit further though. The bird's strong knee joints would have made it capable of movement, which was not slow, but actually quite fast. The word capable is repeated and rapid is replaced with fast. 36. Dodo's small wings wouldn't have allowed it to leave the ground. This means the bird couldn't fly. They were used for balance or balancing. Both are correct. 37. The bird's brain was not small but average in size. 38. Have you guessed that this is the sense of smell that how dodos find food? So, how many questions out of 8 did you get right? Let me know in the comments how you did on this task and on the others we're about to cover. Whenever I asked my students which IELTS listening questions they find the most difficult, there is always a clear winner, multiple choice, and I'd vote the same. So let me show you the 5 steps that can help you find more answers, and then we do some practice questions together. There are 2 types of these questions. Choose the correct letter, A, B or C. In this case, you need to find one correct answer out of 3, or choose 2 letters from A to E. Then you need to find 2 correct answers. For each of them, you get 1 point. I find that the difficulty of these questions is partly determined by how long your options are. Sometimes you see just 1 or 2 words per option. Sometimes each is sentence long. Let's start with short options to warm up, and I'd like you to apply these 2 tips. If options are short, correct answers are usually paraphrased. Beware of traps. These are options where the keyword is repeated but the answer is wrong. Please count how many questions you answer correctly. Okay, you're about to hear a monologue about an estate or a large house with a garden and some land used for farming. Here are the first 2 questions. Please read them, you have a few seconds, and then you will hear the recording.
The estate consists of the house, gardens, parkland and farm, and it dates back to the 14th century. The original house was replaced in the late 17th century, and of course it has had a large number of owners. Almost all of them have left their mark, generally by adding new rooms, like the ballroom and conservatory, or by demolishing others. The farm looks much as it's always done, although the current owner has done a great deal of work to the flower beds. Big houses like Oniton had dozens of servants until the 1920s or 30s, and we've tried to show what their working lives were like. Photographs, of course, don't give much of an idea, so instead, as you go round the house, you'll see volunteers dressed up as 19th century servants going about their work. They'll explain what they're doing and tell you their recipes or what tools they're using. We've just introduced this feature to replace the audio guide we used to have available.
Let's have a look at the first question and the transcript. First of all, the question says, many past owners made changes to not just one, but many. Now, in the first sentence, we just have the description of the estate and that it had a large number of owners. Okay, so what changes have they made? Almost all of them had left their mark generally by adding a new room, like the ballroom and conservatory, or by demolishing others. So adding a new room is making changes to the house. That's the correct answer. But actually, there is another sentence. Let's check. The farm, so we have a word from one of our options, looks more like it's always done. So no changes have been made to the farm. Although the current owner has done a great deal of work to the flower beds. So flower beds, that's our garden. But it's only the current owner who made changes, and we need many past owners. So again, this option is incorrect. But actually, as soon as you hear the correct answer in IELTS Listening, like B, you can move on to the next question because the answer will not change. Now, question number 2. Visitors can learn about the work of servants from... Now let's have a look at our transcript. Okay, so here we just learned that there were a lot of servants in this house. Next, photographs. So that's option B. Of course, don't give much of an idea. So this is an incorrect option. So instead, you go around the house and you see volunteers dressed up as servants. This means they are in costumes. They are dressed up, going about their work, and they will explain what they're doing and tell you their recipes and what tools they're using. So you can learn about the work of servants from people in costume. That's the correct answer. But again, we have another sentence. We've just introduced this feature to replace the audio guide. Again, we have one of our keywords from option A, we used to have available. Used to means it was true in the past, but it's not true anymore. They don't have audio guides anymore. So the correct answer is C. As you might have noticed, both in this and the previous question, we found the correct answer in the middle of the description. And the correct answer was actually paraphrased. But then we had another option where the keyword was repeated, but this option was incorrect. So I call them traps. Now try to apply the same tips to a question with 2 answers. This one is from section 3, which means it's a dialogue. In our case, these are 2 students working on a theatre project. Now you have some time to read this question.
So, first of all, I'm not sure how much information we should include in our reviews.
Right. Well, I don't think we need to describe what happens, especially as Romeo and Juliet is one of Shakespeare's most well-known plays.
Yeah, everyone knows the story. In an essay, we'd focus on the poetry and Shakespeare's use of imagery, etc. But that isn't really relevant in a review. We're supposed to focus on how effective this particular production is.
We should say what made it a success or a failure.
And part of that means talking about the emotional impact the performance had on us. I think that's important.
Yes. And we should definitely mention how well the director handled important bits of the play, like when Romeo climbs onto Juliet's balcony.
And the fight between Mercutio and Tybalt.
Yes. It would also be interesting to mention the theatre space and how the director used it, but I don't think we'll have space in 800 words.
No, OK.
Let's have a look. We need to find 2 correct answers. Student 1. So how much information should we include? Student 2. Well, I don't think we need to describe what happens. Describing what happens is option B, a summary of the plot. They don't need it. Next, student 1. Yeah, everyone knows a story. In an essay, we would focus on the poetry and Shakespeare's use of imagery. So poetry and imagery. It may be a little bit non-straightforward, but they're actually talking about option A, analysis of the text. But he says that in an essay, they would focus on it. But it isn't really relevant in a review, and they are writing a review. So again, option A is incorrect. Student 2. We should say what made it a success or failure. And part of that means talking about the emotional impact the performance had on us. This is option D. Yes, they think it's important. Student 2. And we should definitely mention how well the director handled important bits of the play, like when Romeo climbed on the balcony. So this is a reference to particular scenes. They think they should mention that. That's the second correct answer. And again, we have some more. And the fight. Yes, that refers to the previous answer. It would also be interesting to mention the theatre space and how the director used it. So the theatre, that's option C, and actually the keyword is repeated here. But I don't think we have space. So no, they're not gonna mention that. Okay, as you can see in this answer, each option was mentioned, not in order. Most of them were paraphrased. The only repeated keyword was the theatre discussed at the very end, and that was actually a trap. That answer would be wrong. Okay, it's time to try some questions where each option is a bit longer. Here are some tips. Find the keywords in each option. They can help you find which option is being discussed. If you are taking a paper-based exam, you can underline them. In the computer-based test, you can highlight text, but honestly, there is no time. Next, some keywords are paraphrased, some are not. You will hear a number of options discussed, but answers depend on certain details. Try to read all the questions and options as carefully as possible. We'll talk about how to find time for that a bit later. And do look out for traps. If you hear a keyword, it doesn't mean this option is correct. The answer may be correct or may be wrong. If a certain option is incorrect, cross it out. Then you'll be selecting your answer among fewer options. Again, this tip is more applicable to the paper-based test where you can quickly cross things out. Right now, you're gonna hear a part 2 monologue about a school and its extended hours childcare service. Ready? Now you have some time to read this question.
We offer childcare for children from the ages of 4 to 11, both before and after school. We are insured to provide care for up to 70 children, although we rarely have this many attending at any one session. I think we generally expect around 50 to 60 children for the afternoon sessions, and about half that number for the breakfast sessions. Although we currently do have 70 children registered with us, not all of these attend every day. It's 10 years since we began offering an extended hours service, and we've come a long way during that time. When we first opened, we only had about 20 children attending regularly.
Before we read the transcript, let's have a look at the question itself. When our options are long, it's particularly important to find the keywords and to find what the differences are between different options. Then it will be easier for you to navigate. So here, I would say that they are talking about sessions after school and before school, or mornings and afternoons. So that may be important. And of course, numbers. 50 children, more children, 70. Let's read the transcript. In the first sentence, we learn that they offer childcare for children from the ages of 4 to 11. We don't have any options with ages, both before and after school. Okay, now we know that. Have a look at this one. We're insured to provide care for up to 70 children. Well, actually, we have 70 children here, right? 70. And it says the maximum number. And indeed, if they're only insured for 70, it would be illegal to take more children. So this option is correct. Next, I think we generally expect around 50 to 60 children for the afternoon sessions. Afternoon. Okay, we have 50 children here. What does it say? The average of 50 children attend in the mornings. So no, we don't have information like that. Let's continue reading. And about half that number for breakfast sessions or in the morning. Have a look at option B. More children attend after school than before school. Yes, that's correct. We've actually found our answers, but let's continue reading. Although we currently have 70 children registered with us, not all of these attend every day. And I think they're actually talking about something similar to this one. But they're saying that not all children choose to come, while in this option they say children cannot come. So they choose not to come or they cannot come. These are different things, so this option is incorrect. And the last, it's 10 years since we began. And if you have a look at option A, it started recently? No. So how did that go? Hope you're up for the challenge. The most complex questions are coming. In some tests, not in all, in part 3, you may find a number of questions with very long options, like in this example, 6 questions. When preparing for this video, I tried to read all of them in the time allocated in the test, but I could barely finish skimming through, and it did reflect on my performance. Here is what you can do. These questions come in part 3. At the end of part 2, you'll be given 30 seconds to review your answers. Don't review them. Start reading these multiple choice questions as soon as part 2 finishes. Then you have a better chance to read all the questions, and it will be a bit easier to navigate through these options once the recording starts. The other tips are the same as before. I've selected 3 questions for you. In this dialogue, 2 students are discussing their work experience which they undertook at 2 different farms. Right now, I'm going to give you as much time to read these questions as you are going to get in the test if you don't use the review time. If that's not enough, as soon as you hear the recording, pause the video, finish reading all the options, and then resume it.
So, Tim, we have to do a short summary of our work experience on a farm.
Right. My farm was great, but arranging the work experience was hard. One problem was it was miles away and I don't drive. And also, I'd really wanted a placement for a month, but I could only get one for 2 weeks.
I was lucky. The farmer let me stay on the farm, so I didn't have to travel. But finding the right sort of farm to apply to wasn't easy.
No, they don't seem to have websites, do they? I found mine through a friend of my mother's, but it wasn't easy.
No.
I was interested in the amount of supplements they add to animals' feed nowadays. Like, even the chickens got extra vitamins and electrolytes in their feed.
Yes, I found that too. And they're not cheap. But my farmer said some are overpriced for what they are, and he didn't give them as a matter of routine, just at times when the chickens seemed to particularly require them.
Yes, mine said the same. He said certain breeds of chickens might need more supplements than the others, but the cheap and expensive ones are all basically the same. So, did your farm have any other livestock, Diana?
Yes, dairy cows. I made a really embarrassing mistake when I was working in the milk shed. Some cows had been treated with antibiotics, so their milk wasn't suitable for human consumption, and it had to be put in a separate container. But I got mixed up, and I poured some milk from the wrong cow in with the milk for humans.
First of all, it's very important to read the question itself carefully. We're looking for problems that both Diana and Tim faced, both of them. And our options are about the initial contact, transport, and finding a placement for the required length of time. Now, over here, Tim started talking about his problems. So one problem was that it was miles away and I don't drive. So he had a problem with transport. And also, he wanted it for a month, but could only get 2 weeks. So he had a problem with the length of time. But did Diana have the same problems? She says, I was lucky. The farmer let me stay on the farm, so no, she didn't have a problem with the transport. But finding the right sorts of farm wasn't easy, so she had a problem with this one. And she actually didn't mention option C. Tim replied, no, they don't seem to have websites, do they? I found mine through a friend of my mother's. Yes, he also had this problem of making the initial contact. The second question was about adding supplements to chicken. What did the students learn? So the question doesn't specifically say both of them or what tip was the same for both of them. So it actually doesn't require a specific confirmation from both students. But let's have a look at the transcript. Diana says, supplements are not cheap. So she's discussing option B. Is it worth paying extra? My farmer said they are overpriced. No, they shouldn't pay extra. And he didn't give them as a matter of routine. He didn't give them regularly, just at times when the chickens seem to particularly require them. This is option A. Supplements should be given if specially needed. Yes, that's the correct answer. But let's continue. Just to be sure you get the correct answer, Tim says, yes, mine said the same. And then he added that some breeds of chickens might need more supplements than others. But this is not the same as option C, where they say that the amount given at one time should be limited. No, it's not the same. And he continues, but the cheap and expensive ones are the same. So again, option B is incorrect. And the last question. What mistake did Diana make? Well, actually, here we need to read a couple of sentences again. She says, some cows have been treated with antibiotics, so their milk wasn't suitable for human consumption and had to be stored or put in a separate container. But I got mixed up and poured some milk from the wrong cow in with the milk for humans. So the whole lot had to be thrown away. So this keyword, thrown away, is repeated from option B, threw away some milk. But is it what happened? She accidentally threw some milk away. No, she didn't throw it away. She made a mistake when storing the milk. She put it in the wrong container and then they had to throw milk away. So that wasn't a mistake. The mistake was C. Okay, how did it go? To be honest, for me personally, these questions remain the hardest, just because of how much you need to read while also listening at the same time. But I hope the approach you learned can help you make these questions more manageable. Our next task is matching features, and I think some of the techniques I'm going to show you can help quite a lot. Hope you're not too tired yet. Just 2 left. Let's dive in. Okay, matching information questions appear either in part 2, which is a monologue by one speaker, or part 3, which is a dialogue between 2 people. Here is a task. So it comes from Cambridge IELTS books, and Cambridge English is the organization that prepares IELTS papers. So their practice tests are the closest to the real thing. So here is a task. At the top, you have a box with options from A to H, and at the bottom, you have questions from 15 to 20. You always have more options than questions. In this case, 8 options and 6 questions. And you use each option only once. There are 2 proofs of that. So first of all, look at the task. Choose 6 answers from the box. And we have 6 questions, so you use each only once. But also, when you take a computer-based test, to answer this type of question, you simply take an option and you drag it to the question, and it automatically disappears from the list of options. Okay, the first tip is follow the questions. In matching information questions, questions come in order. So questions are those at the bottom with numbers. And you will hear about fresh food commercial manager first, then agronomist, then fresh produce buyer, and so on. Another good tip is that questions are not paraphrased, so you will actually hear the exact words, fresh food commercial manager, and so on. The only paraphrasing is in question number 18. The garden center sales manager is the sales manager for a chain of garden centers. I'm sure you will agree that it's a very easy paraphrasing. The difficulty of matching information is that options are paraphrased, and they are fully paraphrased. Not a single keyword will be repeated, so you need to look for synonyms and paraphrasing. I've prepared a little exercise for you to check how well you can recognize paraphrasing. I've selected the phrases or sentences from the recording, and you need to find which option they're talking about. First, let's read all the options. You should do that before the recording starts. A. Not a permanent job. B. Involves leading a team. Experience, not essential. Intensive work, but also fun. Chance to earn more through overtime. Chance for rapid promotion. Accommodation available. Local travel involved. Okay, these are our options. Now, find which option they're talking about. Available for a 12-month maternity cover. I'm gonna give you a few seconds. Okay, which answer is this? A. Not a permanent job. So you will cover for someone who's on maternity, someone who's having a baby. So this means that this job is not permanent. Next. There are good opportunities for the right person to quickly make their way up the career ladder. A few seconds. Look through all the options. Which one is this? The answer is F. Chance for rapid promotion. If you make your way up the career ladder quickly, it means you get promoted quickly. Next. The staff work hard, but they play hard as well. Which option is this? The answer is D. Intensive work, but also fun. When you're talking about someone and you hear work hard, play hard, it means that someone works very hard, but then they have a lot of fun as well. Next, the possibility of renting a small cottage on the estate. Which option is this? We have just a few left. That's accommodation available. If you rent a cottage, it means you live there, so that's your accommodation. The company may be prepared to consider someone who has just completed an appropriate training course. So which option is this? Experience not essential. If someone just completed a training course, it means they haven't worked yet. They don't have any experience. You will be visiting centers in the region. This is the last one. And the answer is H. Local travel involved. If you'll be visiting centers in the region, you will travel there. And as you can see, not a single keyword has been repeated. When they're talking about maternity cover, it's not a permanent job, or completed a training course, experience not essential, work hard, play hard, intensive work but fun. So to answer this type of questions, you really need to concentrate on the meaning, not just look for some keywords. My tip is try to memorize the options. Read all of them before the recording begins and try to memorize as many as you can. Then it will be easier for you to locate the correct option quickly. Now let's try to solve several practice tasks. Ready? Here they are.
You will hear a man talking to an official at a tourist information office.
Can I help you?
Yes, I was wanting somewhere to stay for a few days, a 4- or 5-star hotel. Can you tell me something about the possibilities?
OK, right, well, there are 5 hotels that might interest you. Were you wanting a city centre location, or would you be interested in something a bit further out?
Well, I do have a car, so I could go for either.
You've heard 30 seconds, but there was no answer. Quite often, the first few phrases don't contain any answers to help you settle. Keep on looking for the answer to question number 1, a hotel in a rural area.
Well, there are 2 central hotels in the range you're looking for. There's Carlton House and the Imperial. They're both near the main square, but if you've got your own transport, you might be interested in the Royal Oak. That's out in the country, about 10 kilometres away. Very peaceful. Then there's the Bridge Hotel and the Majestic. They're both in town, but not in the centre. They're out on the airport road.
Here is a transcript. The key words are: you might be interested in the Royal Oak. That's out in the country, about 10 kilometers away. Very peaceful. Out in the country means in a rural area. Now, you should look for the second answer. Only opened recently.
That might be a bit far out, actually. OK, now the other 2 you mentioned in the city centre. Can you tell me a bit about them?
Well, they're both excellent hotels. If you want something with a bit of character, Carlton House is quite unusual. It's a very old building that was originally a large private house. It was bought by the Vannies chain, and they completely refurbished it. They took their first guests just a few months ago, but it's already got an excellent reputation. That's a 5-star hotel.
The key words are: they completely refurbished it. They took their first guests just a few months ago. It means that this hotel opened recently. Previously in the paragraph, they talked about a very old building, but this is just a distraction. The question is not about a new building. We are looking for a hotel that opened recently. Now let's continue. Question number 3. Offers facilities for business functions.
Or there's the Imperial, which is a much more modern building. That also has its own gym, and it also has internet connection and meeting rooms. It's used for conferences and corporate events as well as private guests. That's 5-star as well.
Here, we can hear that the Imperial has internet connection and meetings rooms. It's used for conferences and corporate events. Business functions are business events, such as conferences. You see, not a single word is repeated, but the meaning is the same. And the last question, a hotel with an indoor swimming pool.
Does it have a swimming pool as well as a gym?
No, the Royal Oak has an outdoor pool, which is lovely in the summer, but the only hotel with an indoor pool is the Bridge Hotel. It doesn't have a gym, though. The Majestic is planning to build a swimming pool and a fitness centre, but it's not finished yet.
I see. Well, I think I'll probably go for one of the city centre hotels.
Here is our answer. Have a look at the question first. You see, it's not just about a swimming pool. It's about an indoor swimming pool. Just from this detail, you can already guess that there may be a hotel with an outdoor swimming pool too. Indeed, that's Royal Oak. That's an incorrect answer. And also, we've already used this option to answer another question. That's why you should cross out options as you use them. Okay, how many questions out of 4 could you answer? Now we have just one question type left, and you know all the strategies for IELTS listening. And this task is maps, and it can be quite tricky, but if you understand it better, it will be more manageable. Let's dive in. I've prepared for you 2 maps today, which are slightly different. The second one is more difficult in my opinion. Let's look at the first map, question by question, and I'll be giving you tips along the way. But first of all, what should you do before the recording starts playing? Well, 3 things. Read the elements on the map, find the starting point, which is usually the entrance located at the bottom of the map, and read the questions. First, read the title. This is Branley Castle. Let's look at the elements. The main entrance is at the bottom. That's where our tour will most likely start. In the castle, we see south and north gates, several towers, walls, and the Great Hall. The river is at the top, and there are 2 bridges across the river. Please note that there is a compass in the corner, north, east, south, west. You may hear that something is located in the southeast corner. Then you should know that southeast is the bottom right-hand corner. Now, if you still have some time left, read the questions. Starting point for walking the walls. Bow and arrow display. Hunting birds display. Traditional dancing. And shop. Now, what should you do while the recording is playing? Remember that questions come in order. Follow the question numbers next to the map, not the letters on the map. And cross out used options to clearly see what's left. And cross out incorrect options you hear about. They're not going to be discussed again. Let me explain this point. Have a look at this example. You need to find the library, and you hear. The library is located near the City Hall, but that's not the big building right next to it, as many people think. At this moment, you can cross out option A. You won't hear about it again. It was there to test you. So the recording continues. The library is actually the long building behind the City Hall. So option B is the correct answer. Okay, now using these tips, let's try to find our answers. Ready?
Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Now, if you can take a look at your plans, you'll see Branley Castle has 4 towers joined together by a high wall, with the river on 2 sides. Don't miss seeing the Great Hall. That's near the river in the main tower, the biggest one, which was extended and redesigned in the 18th century.
This was a little introduction that took us around the castle. Now look for the answer to question number 16.
If you want to get a good view of the whole castle, you can walk around the walls. The starting point's quite near the main entrance. Walk straight down the path until you get to the south gate, and it's just there. Don't go on to the north gate. There's no way up from there.
Here is what we've heard. If you want to get a good view of the whole castle, you can walk around the walls. Okay, the answer is somewhere here. The starting point's quite near the main entrance. You see, we start from the main entrance. Walk straight down the path, straight down, until you get to the south gate, and it's just there. Okay, so that's it. Please note that straight down means straight. It doesn't mean down. The answer is H, and let's cross it out on the map. Now look for the answer to question number 17.
There'll shortly be a show in which you can see archers displaying their skill with a bow and arrow. The quickest way to get there is to take the first left after the main entrance and follow the path past the bridge. Then you'll see it in front of you at the end.
Let's have a look. There will shortly be a show in which you can see archers displaying their skill in a bow and arrow. You see, it's the same as bow and arrow display. There is no paraphrasing, just the order of words is slightly different. The quickest way to get there is to take the first left after the main entrance. Okay, first left. And follow the path past the bridge. So past the bridge. And you see it in front of you at the end. So here it is. Please note that past the bridge means you pass near the bridge. You don't cross it. The correct answer is D, and option G is a little trap for you.
If you like animals, there's also a display of hunting birds, falcons and eagles and so on. If you go from the main entrance in the direction of the south gate, but turn right before you get there instead of going through it, you'll see it on your right, past the first tower.
The next question is number 18. If you like animals, there is also a display of hunting birds. Okay, that's what we need. If you go from the main entrance in the direction of the south gate, okay, here, but turn right before you get there instead of going through it. So turn right instead of going through it. You see it on your right past the first tower. Here it is. The correct answer is F. Now, question number 19.
At 3 p.m, there's a short performance of traditional dancing on the outdoor stage. That's right at the other side of the castle from the entrance and over the bridge. It's about 10 minutes walk or so.
There is a short performance of traditional dancing on the outdoor stage. That's right at the other side of the castle from the entrance. Other side, okay, so somewhere here. And over the bridge. Oh, that's the only place over the bridge. The correct answer is indeed A. Next.
And finally, the shop. It's actually inside one of the towers, but the way in is from the outside. Just take the first left after the main entrance, go down the path and take the first right. It's got some lovely gifts and souvenirs.
And finally, the shop. It's actually inside one of the towers. So we see two towers, this one and this one. Just take the first left after the main entrance, so main entrance, first left, and go down the path and take the first right. So here it is. The answer is E. Okay, we've solved this task together. How easy was it to understand the audio? If you feel that it's difficult to understand the recording, but then you see the transcript and everything is clear, this means that you need to listen to English speech more. And one way is to listen to audiobooks, because you can do that while commuting to work or studies or doing some domestic chores. And if you're not on Audible, I clearly am, you can get any book for free as part of a free trial. I'll leave a link to claim your book in the description. Just remember that if you don't want to continue paying for your subscription, you must cancel it within 1 month, and you can still keep your first book. Now, try another task on your own, and then I'll show you the answers. Be careful, this task has some tricks designed to mislead you. You have 15 seconds to read the task before the recording begins.
So next on the agenda is proposals for improvements to the recreation ground. Councillor Thornton again.
Well, since we managed to extend the recreation ground, we've spent some time talking to local people about how it could be made a more attractive and useful space. If you have a look at the map up on the screen, you can see the river up in the north and the community hall near the entrance from the road. At present, cars can park between the community hall and that line of trees to the east, but this is quite dangerous for pedestrians, so we're suggesting a new car park on the opposite side of the community hall, right next to it. We also have a new location for the cricket pitch. As we've now purchased additional space to the east of the recreation ground, beyond the trees, we plan to move it away from its current location, which is rather near the road, into this new area beyond the line of trees. This means there's less danger of stray balls hitting cars or pedestrians. We've got plans for a children's playground, which will be accessible by a footpath from the community hall and will be alongside the river. We'd originally thought of having it close to the road, but we think this will be a more attractive location. The skateboard ramp is very popular with both younger and older children. We had considered moving this up towards the river, but in the end we decided to have it in the southeast corner near the road. The pavilion is very well used at present by both football players and cricketers. It will stay where it is now, to the left of the line of trees and near to the river, handy for both the football and cricket pitches. And finally, we'll be getting a new notice board for local information, and that will be directly on people's right as they go from the road into the recreation ground.
How did it go? Let's have a look at the answers, but let me show you something first. Have a look at these questions. Number 15, new car park. Number 16, new cricket pitch. So this word new tells me that probably we're going to hear about the current or old locations too, but we need the new locations. Okay, the first question. At present, cars can park between the community hall and that line of trees to the east. So that's the community hall and that's the line of trees, and they park in between. But that's the current location, which is quite dangerous for pedestrians, so that's not the correct answer. So we're suggesting a new car park on the opposite side of the community hall. So that's it. The answer is C. Now, question number 16. New cricket pitch. We also have a new location for the cricket pitch, as we've now purchased additional space to the east of the recreational ground, so that's east. Beyond the trees, we plan to move it away from the current location, which is rather near the road. So you see, near the road is the current location, but we need the new location. So they're moving it into this new area beyond the trees. So that's it. That's the new cricket pitch. The answer is F. Number 17, children's playground. So we've got plans for a children's playground, which will be accessible by a footpath from the community hall. So we see the legend, so that's the footpath, so that's it. And so it should be somewhere on the footpath, and it will be alongside the river. So that's the river, and that's the playground. So this option is not correct, because it's not accessible by the footpath? The answer is A. Next. The skateboard ramp is very popular with both younger and older children. We had considered moving it up towards the river. So up towards the river, they had considered that. But in the end, we decided to have it in the southeast corner near the road. So southeast. So it's here. This is the corner near the road. And this is our ramp. The answer is I. Next. The pavilion is very well used at present and so on. It will stay where it is now, to the left of the line of trees, to the left, and near the river. So here it is. The answer is E. And the last question. We'll be getting a new notice board that will be directly on people's right as they go from the road. So from the road, they go into the recreation ground, and it's gonna be on their right. That's it. The answer is H. Okay, how many questions in total could you answer today? If you counted, let me know in the comments so I see how you're doing. Whatever the result is, it's great that you're learning and practicing, but it might be that it's time to start working on your listening skills, because the less effort you need to spend to understand the recording, the more you can concentrate on questions and getting them right. Over the years of learning English, I tried many different ways of improving my listening skills, and today I'd like to share with you the 5 that I personally found most effective. Here they are. How can you understand every word in IELTS listening and answer every question? Over the years of learning English, I tried many different ways of improving my listening skills, and today I'd like to share with you the 5 that I personally found most effective and that I believe can bring you the most meaningful and quick results. It's Sasia here. Let's get started. To improve your IELTS listening skills, you need to understand where your weaknesses are and work on improving them. To do that, take an official Cambridge practice test. To assess your level, I recommend using recent tests from 15 and up, but for our purposes, any Cambridge practice test will do. Complete one test, then check all the answers and find the ones you got wrong. Open the audio script. Go back to every question you answered incorrectly, read the question again, read the script, and try to understand why you got it wrong. There are several possibilities. Maybe you understood everything, but you simply missed the correct answer. This can easily happen as the pace of the listening test is quite fast. In this case, work on your test technique. I have videos giving you an overall technique for IELTS listening, as well as techniques for each type of question. Luckily, there are only 4 types of questions in IELTS listening. Every single test has multiple choice and fill in the blanks questions. And then you will have either maps or matching features. Once you know how these questions are organized, it will be easier for you to answer them. The second possibility is that you read the script and everything is clear. But when you listen to the recording, you struggle to understand some of it. This is a sign that you need to work on your English listening skills to get the recording more easily. I'm going to give you some excellent exercises in just a second. The third possibility is that you don't know some of the words either in the question or in the script, and you simply can't understand which answer is correct. Or you spell fill in the blanks answers incorrectly. In this case, you need to work on expanding your English vocabulary, not just your listening. But this is a topic for another video because today we're concentrating on improving your IELTS listening skills. So, what can you do if you can't understand the recording effortlessly? There is an excellent exercise I call Listen, Read, Listen. And you can do it with your Cambridge practice tests or another English source for which you have an audio and a transcript. Here's what you do. Choose something short between 2 and 5 minutes. First, listen to the recording, trying to get it. Then, open the transcript and listen to the recording again while following what's been said on paper or your computer screen. This can help you match sounds to words. And if a particular word or phrase seems tricky, rewind the recording and listen to it again. Try to really hear every word. Once you're done, close the transcript and listen to the recording again. I bet this time you'll be able to understand it a little bit better and you've already improved your listening skills. I bet. You know, when I just moved to the UK, I really struggled to understand people over the phone. And this exercise helped me so much. To do it, you can use IELTS practice tests or another source, for example, BBC Learning English, which videos are fully subtitled and only a few minutes long, just what you need. You could also do this exercise with movies or songs. However, their pronunciation might be very casual and present extra complexities. I find that films and music are great for your general listening skills, but for IELTS listening, I choose something a little bit more formal and clear. The next exercise is to play with speed. Take an audio recording, again it may be a practice test or a YouTube video, and listen to it at normal speed. How much do you understand? 70%? 90%? Then slow it down to either 0.75x or 0.5x. The recording will become slightly weird but clear. Next, listen to it again at normal speed or even accelerate it to 1.25x or 1.5x to give yourself an extra challenge. If you can understand the accelerated recording, then listening to it at its original speed will be a walk in the park. Now, let's get to the fundamental question of why you know certain words and phrases and can easily recognize them when you see them in a text, but you struggle to understand them when you hear them. Well, that's because of the way native speakers pronounce words and sounds. And their pronunciation also depends on their accent. Some words in British and American English sound pretty different. Let me show you British and then American.
Water.
Water.
Here's another one.
Hot. Hot. Laboratory. Laboratory.
Vase. Vase.
Oh, this one has another option.
Vase.
And the classic example.
Tomato.
Tomato.
If at school you always listen to American accents, then listening to a British accent may be challenging for you. Ideally, you should get used to both before your exam, but first and foremost, the British accent. Another thing that may cause some problems is what's called connected speech. Native speakers don't pronounce words one by one, they link them together. And when they do that, certain sounds may appear or disappear. Let me show you a few examples. So, when two vowel sounds meet, English speakers tend to insert an extra sound. This is called intrusion. This new sound intrudes. For example, here, we are friends. We are friends. Were. You are my friend. You are my friend. Or are. I saw it. I saw it. Idea of. Idea of. In other cases, certain sounds are dropped. This is called elision. For example, I should have known it. I should have known it. Good boy, good boy. Hand, bag, handbag. Must be, must be. IELTS speaking part 3. Part 3. If you have some time before your exam, I highly recommend learning more about English pronunciation. It's going to help you not only in IELTS listening, but of course also in IELTS speaking. There are some amazing lessons on YouTube. For example, Tim's Pronunciation Workshop by BBC Learning English. And I'm also going to link some lessons from British and American teachers in the video description. Of course, the more you listen to English speech, the easier it gets. You may think you don't have time because of your work or studies, but I bet you could find up to an hour a day that you could spend improving your English skills without changing your routine. How? By turning boring time into listening time. When you're commuting to work or school, cooking food or cleaning your home, listen to an audiobook in English or a podcast. For years, I thought I didn't have time to read fiction books. But now I easily listen to 2 books a month without dedicating any extra time to this activity. If you're not yet on Audible, you can sign up for a free trial and get any book for free. I'll leave a link to this offer in the description. And if you use my link, I'll earn a small commission at no expense to you. But if you don't want to start a paid subscription, don't forget to cancel your trial before it ends, and you get to keep your free book. On Spotify, you can find tons of amazing podcasts. Just choose something you're interested in and listen to it. Oh yes, and for this exercise, choose real English, not English lessons, where teachers tend to be extra clear. Remember, the longest journey begins with a single step. So start working on your listening skills and you'll see how they're improving. And you definitely get to the level at which you can pass your IELTS test. Just keep on going. And if you're still here, comment "I'm a star" because you are. You're clearly taking your preparation very seriously, and I wish you all the best with your exam. By the way, all the links to the resources I've mentioned in this video are in the description box below. And thank you so much for watching me today. Good luck with your preparation and your exam. Bye!